Okay. Thank you so much for coming back. We will resume with the next panel, Weaponizing Gender and Identity, Exposing Disinformation Tactic, moderated by Nina Jankovic. Please.
There we go. Good to see everyone. Thanks for sticking with us late into the day on the second day of this great conference. I am honored to be joined by 5 excellent experts in gender and identity-based disinformation. And before I jump into letting them explain their work and where they see the challenges in this field right now, I want to give you a little bit of context about how this line of inquiry came to be, at least for me. I was doing research on Russian disinformation in Ukraine and Georgia back in 2017, and I was interviewing then MP Svetlana Zalishchuk in Ukraine, and we were talking about Russian interference in the Dutch referendum on Ukraine's association agreement with the EU, and she stopped me and said, "Nina, I want to talk about something else. Is that okay?" And as a journalist, when someone tells you that, you never say no, because it's usually very interesting. And she told me about a campaign that she had been subjected to when she was a new MP and doing a lot of advocacy on behalf of Ukraine on the international stage, when her face had been photoshopped onto naked women's bodies, and there were rumors circulating that she was going to run naked down the streets of Kiev if Ukraine lost a key battle back then. And those rumors got so much traction that a European journalist asked her at the UN if they were true. Now, of course, these rumors had been planted by Russia. These were prior to the days of accessible generative artificial intelligence. Now we know that that would be likely created a deep fake sexual abuse material that would have been distributed. But this really got me interested in this line of inquiry. I tracked it, of course, very strongly in Georgia, in many countries in Central and Eastern Europe, and it, of course, happens a lot in my own country, in the United States as well. It is something that the platforms, I think we would all agree, are not taking seriously enough. And we've got a lot of different perspectives here today. So rather than introduce all the panelists, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We're going to try to keep this a little bit more conversational and definitely leave time for your questions and answers. So we'll start here with Laure. If you can tell us a little bit about your work in France and how you see the field right now.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be part of this panel. I'm Laure Salmona. I'm the co-founder and director of a French feminist organization, Féministes contre le cyberharcèlement, Feminists Against Cyber Harassment, and we work and fight gender-based violence, tech-facilitated gender-based violence. We exist for 10 years now, and we saw a lot of change in the digital field and on online violence. So about our work, gender disinformation for us is really the continuation of structural gender-based violence enacted through digital infrastructure. Weaponizing social media against women, leaders, activists, journalists, is the most effective mechanism to silence women, to erode democracy, and to fuel far-right and masculinist movements. The project is simple. They want to scare women. They want to scare women enough. This is a chilling effect, making women constantly weight the cost of their rebellion against patriarchal structures. The cost of simply being a woman online, in the digital public sphere. And we can ask ourselves, who decide what is true or false? Because 5 billion people use social media, and these platforms choose in opaque and arbitrary ways what each of us see online. And their power of influence is really phenomenal. They don't only host gendered disinformation, they algorithmically reward it. Misogyny drives engagement, and engagement drives profit. And platforms let this content spread and finally shape our thoughts, our societies, our politics. And in France, we face a new level of propaganda and online arms. Gender disinformation campaign, transvestigation narrative, I will speak of this later, pornographic deepfakes, and propaganda questioning women's and reproductive rights. And I was astonished to discover that in a digital masculinist sphere, one of the trending topics was the women's right to vote. And yes, questioning women's right to vote is now a normal topic in France. And recently, we've also seen how gender disinformation can reach the highest level of power. Brigitte Macron, the First Lady, has been the target of a massive online harassment campaign through transphobic conspiracy theory, claiming she was born a man. And it was striking to see how this violence was also depoliticized, because Macron couple framed it as a mere attack on personal honor and not at what it truly is, like an expression of transphobia and misogyny deeply rooted in far-right narratives. And this reframing turned a political issue into a private matter, individualizing what is in reality a symptom of a much broader backlash against women and LGBTEQ+ rights. And these transphobic narratives serve a purpose, defining who belongs, who deserves protection, and who counts as fully human. They tell us this is freedom of expression, but when freedom is used to humiliate, to destroy, to silence, it becomes really freedom of oppression. Gendered disinformation is designed to sexualize and shame. It weaponizes intimacy and emotion to delegitimize women. And it's not random, it's a political technology, one that decides who gets to speak, who is believed, and who is silenced.
Thank you so much, Laura, for setting out the stakes so clearly. And those transphobic narratives being used against the First Lady of France, of course, are used against many powerful women around the globe, from AOC in the United States to Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand to, I'm sure, Sanna Marin in Finland and many others. It's something that I've been subjected to as well. It seems that our detractors cannot fathom that there are women who have opinions and who are powerful if they hadn't at some point secretly been a man. Marie-Dora, I wonder if you can shed some light on what the Foreign Ministry of France is doing in this portfolio, any other trends that you see. Also, I know that you led some work on this topic when you were at NATO before as well. Would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nina. I'm very happy to be here. So indeed, my name is Marie-Dora Besancenot, and I used to head the public diplomacy division at NATO, where indeed we decided to take on this topic. Very simply because I was a bit tired of hearing that women were more vulnerable than men to disinformation, and I also wanted to show that they are also more targeted, very simply. And so we created a campaign called Women versus Disinfo, highlighting how many amazing women are actually active in this field, which was a little unusual in a very male environment with a focus on defense and security. I think it's worth underlining how many women are active in this field, which is defense and security related, and maybe because it's less about big tanks and what have you, still you have a lot of very talented investigators and so on that we indeed shed light on. So this, I think, happened at a moment when it was still possible to do it. I don't think at NATO it's still possible right now today for political reasons, which is a big pity. This is also why I feel so strongly about those issues right now that I'm back in France and my nation, and I feel very fortunate that my nation is still very impervious to these trends, and also taking it seriously. And as Laure mentioned, these issues are being brought to the fore because it's targeting the First Lady directly, so there's a very, very strong political awareness. And it's not only, and indeed you're right to highlight that it was framed as a private matter, but why they decided to make it a trial and to make it very public, it's also because it has political impact and geopolitical impact. So when the president travels to this and that region with a political agenda, and when the whole trip is ruined by crazy rumors reaching an incredible scale, about his wife doing this and that, or appearing dressed like this or like that, and maybe this could mean that she's a man in disguise. It does have a big impact on his credibility, on the whole government's credibility, and so on. So indeed, it is considered as a top priority, which is why we do care about this issue. So maybe a few words about what I've been seeing, and indeed the timing is interesting because the trial happened last week in France, and you can read the minutes, they're available. What I find very interesting is the whole playbook, and you've underlined one of the key elements, which is, yeah, women are in politics especially are either naive and not fit for politics because they don't have the shoulders, or if they are too strong, then obviously they have to be males in disguise or somehow have been males in the past. And this, of course, has happened to many strong women, and either Ursula von der Leyen or Michelle Obama or First Lady in France right now. What I find very interesting when you read the minutes is you have the whole playbook of misogyny and of rhetorical tropes, which we should be prepared for. we really should be able to prepare counter arguments. And I have a few examples. I mean, if you look at it, it's, I think, and it's very typical of disinfo targeting women. It's the fact that it's all very based on mockery and humor and reducing the topic to something very ridiculous. So this sophistic strategy that is really substituting mockery for argumentation. What we see also is the shifting of the burden of proof, which is something very violent against the First Lady, which is, really, you're not a man, how about you prove it? And with, I mean, I've heard very conservative commentators on TV say things, I mean, use analogies which are complete fallacies, which I haven't seen really applied to males, which I think are more to women. And the craziest one I heard was, well, when your house gets broken into, you need to prove that you have documents showing that you're the owner of the house to get insurance coverage. So how come she's not able to prove she's not a man? But these things right now indeed are showing up in public debate, which has a huge impact because this is complete sophistry, and I can't believe we're having such conversations right now. The second thing I see is a lot of insinuations, also applied to women a lot more than men. Things like, well, I'm not saying she's a man, but, you know, there's no smoke without fire. And by the way, the previous president's girlfriend didn't have such a rumor. So if there was no rumor then there's one now. Then, of course, there must be something there. A lot of that also impacting the quality of public debate. And then if you look at the defense of the, well, the choice was made by the president and his wife to actually expose those who have been spreading those they're not rumors anymore. I mean, this conspiracy theory is very built in now. And what you see is that there's a lot of normal people. I mean, there's this psychic from a female psychic from a town. You get this CEO of a small company. It's very it's just random citizens who have really bought into this conspiracy theories, and the arguments they use are, come on, it was just a good laugh. And the second element is, one of them said there are 13,000 tweets a second being posted in the French infosphere. Why are you picking on our tweets? Oh, she's gagging us. She's harassing us. or others saying she's accusing us of harassment. Harassment can be out of love. I mean, the level of arguments that you see, I think, is really worth studying, because this is only applied to women. So among the solutions, I don't know, but at least I think exposing the people behind this and the absurd quality of the arguments is already a good place to start.
Thank you for that. And certainly, you know, one of the things that bothers me as somebody who's been, I think we've probably all been subject to gendered disinformation on this panel, but, you know, as you said, the burden of proof is on you. And how ridiculous that your very being you should need to prove before an audience who believes horrible things about you. It really does, and I've done interviews and focus groups to this effect, detract and dissuade women from engaging in public debate and public life. Halina, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about, particularly, I know Detector has done research about this, how Russia has framed Ukrainian women in the context of the war and what the effect of gendered disinformation campaigns has been since the full-scale invasion, or anything else you want to tell us about gendered disinformation in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Galina Petrenko from NGO Detector Media from Ukraine. Actually, when I was thinking about this brief description, some findings of our work, I decided to give information about to be different from other panelists and countries in natural way, because in one of our numerous research on this topic, we focused on Russian disinformation against LGBT in armed forces, in military service. And what's interesting, according to one research, it was published in the United Kingdom, from 2 to 7% of Ukrainian military servicemen can be referred to LGBT community. And so they are quite well presented at protecting, defending our country. So Russia does all, you know, this in this case, this disinformation against LGBT in army, it's like an extension of general Russian disinformation. So if Russia always states that Ukraine is a puppet of Western countries, even in war decisions, so in this topic, Russia says the same. There is, we noticed such a sentence that Ukrainian Tarases are fighting for the Western gaze. Taras is a very popular Ukrainian male name, which used here in a derogative way, of course. So it's a this idea that I even have the quote: the West, again, the West proclaims that the armed forces are championing the LGBT revolution. The survivors will have the liberty to enter into same-sex relationships and witness Ukrainian offspring being guided for non-binary individuals to navigate a multi-gender society. Very well written. Another narrative is this extension of Putin's idea of denazification. It's one of his proclaimed aims in a war, in this special war operation. So it's a sentence which was said by Putin himself once, that in the realm of Ukronazism, gender identities are so blurred that denazification means de-LGBTization as well. So he equals this crazy idea of denazification and fight for, let's say, traditional Russian values. And another narrative is a fantasy that Ukraine created elite gay battalion. So it was a fake news that Ukrainian army has been accused of recruiting soldiers from gay clubs, specifically. We actually have known so many gay clubs. There have also been numerous claims about the establishment of LGBTQ plus units termed elite and purposely deployed at critical sectors of the product line. So this is a crazy reality that we live in, and to conclude, Ukrainian society, we have opinion poll quite recent that's about 67%, so solid majority of Ukrainian population. We support the idea of equal rights for all genders, for LGBT community. So this is Russian propaganda which targets luckily some minority clusters of our society.
Thank you, Helena, for bringing the identity part of the gender and identity discussion to the forefront. And indeed, the statistics show that not just women, but gender identity minorities and other minorities in society are targeted with abuse and harassment much more frequently than their white cisgender counterparts. Martha, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about Georgia, or sorry, I'm looking at Salome and you at the same time, about Germany and the research that you're doing about Germany.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here at this conference to support all your work and also especially to be on your panel as one of my idols. So I am currently doing my PhD on gender disinformation with Free University Berlin, currently visiting researcher at Hertie School. And I want to share with you a few observations to sum up my first two studies in 5 minutes. Let's try. Firstly, I can see that anti-LGBT and anti-feminist or anti-gender equality messaging really goes hand in hand. I think to pick up on what has just been said. So I've been investigating all of the RT Deutsch content since 2014 based on gender and sexuality messaging or keywords. And exactly the same frames are used when it comes to LGBT as when it comes to feminism or gender equality. So it's both portrayed as threatening, unnatural, absurd, immoral, and an ideology. As for some recent examples, maybe beyond Annalena Baerbock, which is very, prominent, we can also see this blending of anti-LGBT and especially also anti-feminist messaging targeting women leaders in Germany. So, for example, around the Self-Determination Act that was passed last April 24 and makes it easier to change gender and first name in German passports. This met with organized anti-transgender campaigns, disinformation campaigns spreading fear-based narratives, and Tessa Gansera, who's an MP of the Greens, in the Bundestag also faced openly transgender campaigns and including disinformation, asserting, including on RT, that she had taken up her spot illegally based on gender quotas. So she was using gender quotas to get into parliament. Overall questioning her legitimacy based on gender identity, accompanied by these broader claims of so-called gender ideology actually threatening children. And then we can see we had this case of Frauke Bosius-Gersdorf, who was targeted, a renowned law scholar, who was appointed candidate to the Federal Constitutional Court this year by the SPD, but then was targeted with a campaign, information campaign, including disinformation, questioning her qualification due to her pro-abortion positioning. And so mostly right-wing actors flooded the accounts, the inboxes of CDU-CSU candidates who then withdrew their support, leading to the candidate to withdraw her candidacy. And, this is what we see, that the targeted individuals are withdrawing from public spheres. And so basically what this shows is that it's not just Russia, but also local actors, who pay into this type of messaging. And then secondly, what I could see in this analysis, which also speaks to what you just mentioned, is that anti-gender messaging is used as a gateway for broader liberal anti-Western messaging. So, which then aids the, illiberal public spheres within democratic societies. So at the same time, I saw these gender and sexuality related articles to also transport broader narratives or frames of Western liberal democratic institutions and politicians being deceiving, immoral, divided, values imposing, and untrustworthy. So because of this joint framing, it's not just Russia trying to diffuse homophobic or transphobic or anti-feminist norms, but we can clearly see that it's a gateway to really feed illiberal ideas and to support illiberal public spheres within that try to destabilize democracies from within, which of course leads me to my last point for now. It's thirdly also actually resonating, and this helps far-right forces. So the second study I did was a survey study of a bit over 1,000 alternative media users from, consuming far-right, far-left, conspiratorial and pro-Russian sources. And even among this group, pro-Russian media use is a significant predictor of belief in anti-gender messaging. But more importantly, the highest predictor was AfD support, followed by CDU-CSU support. And this is important. So it means that basically the support for this messaging actually reaches far into the conservative parts of the population. So we are speaking about big chunks of the population. And the reason why this Brosius-Gersdorf case made me so not only frustrated, but also in a way concerned is that we know from decades of far-right research that if you pay lip service to far-right messaging, this helps the far-right gain votes in the end. So we can kind of see how, these illiberal actors work together to support illiberal public spheres, and that this actually resonates far into the conservative sphere.
Yeah, I think it absolutely goes both ways with the bad actors understanding that those anti-gender, anti-minority messages are going to be resonant in domestic populations, and then sometimes the domestic populations picking them up. And I'm sure Salome will have a lot to say about that. So Salome, I know you've done not only research about gender and identity-based narratives in Georgia, but you guys have also done some research on Moldova. I remember seeing your piece on Maya Sandu ahead of the election. So I wonder if you can quickly take us through both of those in the short amount of time that we have.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to introduce myself. You've been hearing my voice and seeing me running around for 2 days, and now I have a chance to formally introduce myself. My name is Salome Giunashvili. I'm a research projects coordinator at Media Development Foundation. And yes, we've done several researches on gender hate speech and identity-based disinformation. Actually, to be honest, my very first project that I did at MDF when I started working, it was also identity-based disinformation. And that was a very unique experience, to say the least, because I had 3 separate emotions, I would say. Like, first of all, I was shocked by the amount of content that targeted women. And on top of that, I was frustrated by the society because of the pre-existing conditions that allow those narratives to work. And on top of that, I was very angry. I really wanted to do something to change that situation. And since then, we've done several studies. And based on the observation that we had so far, I really want to focus on 3 different trends to bring them to your attention. First of all, when it comes to identity-based disinformation, in Georgia, it is mainly event-related. There is something happening, either if this in the country or outside the country, like the elections, protests, or some event, and that actually gives the actors who are interested to spread disinformation the insights to use that and add to the narrative. For example, you've mentioned the case in Moldova that was prior to the election. On August 4th, we've actually encountered this disinformation targeting Maya Sandu. It was claiming that she purchased sperm from Hollywood actors, and she paid like $400,000 or something for that. And when we looked at that disinformation, we found out that cloned website was engaged in spreading this disinformation, and the website was created 7 days before they produced the article. They were mimicking OK website, OK magazine, and they even had the name of the author and also the picture. We definitely contacted that person, and it turned out that she never published anything similar to that. And the disinformation was spreading from Russia because Russian state controlled outlets were engaged in spreading this disinformation, calling it Spermgate scandal. And even in Georgia, you had so many media outlets, pro-government media outlets, spreading this disinformation. And same thing happens with related to domestic issues as well. They try to use identity-based disinformation to discredit protests that are happening in Georgia. One of the cases was against Zia Maglobeli. She was also one of the target of identity-based disinformation, and I really want to take this opportunity to express my solidarity towards her. And on top of that, you actually have another trend in Georgia that in most of the cases, and I mean in case of Ukraine, it comes from the female actors. And in Georgia, that was the case for several years. But recently, we are seeing this shift when domestic actors actually amplify these tactics. So we've done research for the last 18 months, and we see that during a year and a half, 1/5 of the identity-based disinformation comes from the female actors, and the rest are spread by the domestic actors. And that is not happening by accident. It has its logical reasons. And to zoom out, in Georgia, this anti-gender identity-based disinformation is closely connected with the broader anti-Western, anti-European Union propaganda. And that's what pro-government sources and openly pro-Russian sources are using to push their agenda.
Thank you. Yeah, the fertility narrative is one that we see a lot as well, that women who are of childbearing age should not be engaging in the hard work of politics, that they should be doing soft things like rearing children. Ironically, when I was targeted with, nobody said that I bought sperm from Ricky Martin, thank goodness, but they did send me pictures of empty egg cartons a lot. Ironically, while I was pregnant with my son. So, you know, it doesn't, the hypocrisy knows no bounds, but that's kind of the point. It's all infuriating. You can't really do much about it. The burden of proof is on you. So, ladies, I would like to ask, what can we do? Is there any hope for addressing this situation? Or given the normalization of misogyny and kind of the platforming of misogyny, do we just need to wait until the cycle comes back around again and feminism is not something that we need to distance ourselves from politically? What are your takes on this? Because I personally feel a little bit pessimistic at this juncture. Anybody have any positivity? Martha?
Yeah, I was not giving it away earlier, but I said I had one positive to tell you. So a great colleague from UCL just did a study, Philip Ayub and colleagues, that actually shows that telling respondents that Russia is instrumentalizing anti-LGBT messaging leads them to have a less positive image of Putin, like rank him less morally positive, let's say. moral authority is what they call it, and it increases support for LGBT rights. So that's a great finding.
So is that just like a little bit of inoculation, that if we tell people that anti-LGBT messaging is used by bad guys like Putin, then they might change their view of him a little bit?
I guess yes, and maybe to follow up on this, on my example from earlier, it might also need just some awareness raising amongst, the broader population and politicians that this is being instrumentalized. So to give some CDU/CSU MPs some grace, some of them might have actually thought that what's landing in their inboxes is their constituencies wanting them to prevent a pro-abortion candidate, right? Not being aware that there's a very well-sourced and organized, very well-organized anti-gender campaign that operates transnationally on these issues for years, right? So I guess that would help. What would also help, and I think is really needed, is, it might be tempting for conservative forces, once they know that this resonates, to use it and to thrive on this platform. But it's not only unethical because it pushes out LGBT and women, but it's also not strategically just a bad idea, because in the end, this helps far-right forces, and it's not. The way to a more resistant and flourishing democracy is a diverse and tolerant democracy. I'm very convinced.
Great, thank you. Marie-Dora, do you have something to add there?
I think your point on raising awareness really matters, and then I think I would see different tiers. When I worked in the corporate world, what I remember is that whenever we tried to do things on gender equality and so on, the CEOs who were happy to speak up were actually fathers of daughters entering the job market, right? Only them. And then suddenly they got interested in the issue, or they had breakfast with their daughter saying how hard it was, what she was being exposed to at work. And it was only those CEOs which would actually feel that it was something for them to do, to work on. And I think raising awareness on this and keeping this ability for others to step into our shoes really matters. And then, yes, raising awareness on how all those funny memes are actually part of a very highly politicized movement, I think really matters, and this also starts inside families. I mean, I don't let my old father post ridiculous memes on the family WhatsApp group, and all the females in his family actually say, this is not funny, and we have conversations with him, and then he stopped doing it. But really highlighting the fact that, and actually asking, where did the stupid meme come from? Oh, it's your extreme right friend, and why do you think he's spreading these things, and don't you think this is hurtful for us, your daughters, or your, and I think this works bit by bit. So what does it mean for an organization to do this? I just think I was impressed when I was in the corporate world at how how a company, when it decides to set a work culture with specific rules, how efficient it is, and how efficient it was to actually bring males and not only females into this, having a very clear discourse on, we are a community, this is the kind of rules that we need for everyone to work in happily and freely, and this is a breach, it qualifies as a breach, and just giving a clear set of rules. And so now, being on the institutional side as an MFA, I think the same applies. So 2 weeks ago we organized a big summit on feminist diplomacy. I think this matters, like showing that no, we're not shying away from the word diversity, and we still believe that diversity really matters to do our job well and have half of humanity represented in our leadership. All this, I think, still matters. And oddly enough, it now sounds like activism, whereas it sounded like something completely common sense in the previous years. But I really believe in our, yes, the role of institutions and also the corporate world in setting those rules. And right now, I think what's happening in France is really awareness that the rules that are commonly accepted in real life should also be accepted for online situations. And I think institutions and the politicians have done a lot of work to evidence the fact that online violence has effects in real life. You know, all the dramas happening to people, especially teenagers taking their lives after cyber harassment. I think this is now, the awareness is really there, and how we go a step further and actually act is the next question. And of course, there's a bit of regulation involved there, but I think we're getting there.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that talking to people in your life, but also sometimes talking to the people that you encounter online, when there is a conversation to be had. I'm not saying to talk to every troll, but one of the interesting things that I've discovered is I've gotten a lot of Facebook messages over the years from old men, and I'm sorry for the old men in the room, but they're always old men. And you know, they write me an angry message in all caps. It'll say something horrible in it, and inevitably their picture includes their grandchildren. And that's when I see an opening. And so I write to them and I look at their profiles, and they always have horrible cybersecurity. So I can see everything about them. I could probably dox them if I wanted to, but I don't. And I say to them, oh, you're a Vietnam veteran, so was my dad. I see your grandson is the same age as my son. I see that you like the Giants, our American football team. I grew up as a Giants fan. Like, we have a lot in common, and you probably didn't think that a human being is reading this message, but I'm a human being, I'm a mom. We might disagree on politics, but I'm trying to do what I think is best for the country, and I'm trying to serve the public. And just so you know, like, reading this hurts, and I'm sure you wouldn't want your grandson or your granddaughter to receive something like this. And they've sometimes, not every time, but sometimes they've switched there. So I think that's really important. There was one other thing I wanted to say, and now it's got, on the platforms as well. You know, right now we're seeing, again, because of the normalization of misogyny in the United States primarily, we are seeing this retreat from what is seen as DEI, or overcorrection and content moderation, from the platforms. And as a result, when we're reporting things, I'm sure you have this experience, Laure, often the AI is telling us that's not a rape threat, that's not a death threat, right? But I would also want to say to everybody in this room that it's incredibly important to keep documenting it, as Salome and MDF have done, to keep reporting it. That is signals to the platforms that EU regulators can then use in the DSA and the transparency mechanisms to make sure that the platforms are performing their duty of care for their customers. I know, Marta, you had a two-finger, so let's make it quick so that we can take a round of questions before we close.
No, I think just to add to all those great points, I think what we really need to understand is, you know, sometimes gender and sexuality norms are just ridiculed as like these soft tools, whatever, but everybody can relate to what are traditional family roles, gender and sexuality roles, right? And since it's identity-based, it really resonates with people so deeply. So it's such a smart tool to then, you know, instrumentalize, and just for this to be taken seriously, and then to not normalize misogyny and trans and homophobia, because these are the platforms on which identity-based disinformation thrive, right? I mean, so I'm basically just rephrasing what you kind of said anyway, but yes.
Laure, did you want to add something?
Yes, I want to insist that it's not trolling, it's really real violence. And there is an online war for cultural hegemony on the internet, because, you know, who controls the story controls the future. And what is at stake is to silence women, to silence LGBTQ community. And we have to really reclaim the power to narrate ourselves, to refuse to be hypersexualized, to be silenced, because we have to take back digital space. It is a very important space to speak publicly and to change things and yeah, we have to take back digital spaces.
Hear, hear. So let's take maybe two or three questions, just one round. We'll take them all in a line, and then the panelists can answer them. Who has a question? Sure, if they're short. Can we get a mic to Arzu, please?
Thank you. Excellent panel. Thank you so much. I guess another case study to add to the panel, right? Azerbaijan is one of the countries where we've seen numerous cases of harassment used as a tactic targeting journalists, women journalists, targeting female members of politicians as well. And I think maybe, I don't really want to say a good example or a solution, because I don't think we've yet found a solution. But I do think what happened in our case, all the women who were targeted, whether they were targeted on Telegram channels, whether they were targeted in videos that were leaked on online YouTube channels, whether they were harassed and trolled on social media platforms, they all came forward. They didn't hide. And perhaps they did come forward because of who they were. You know, they were prominent women in our community. And it was very painful for them to retell those stories and be interviewed countless times for investigations, but it was really helpful. And it kind of reminds me of my personal story as well. I remember when I first was targeted, I think it took me 2 years to actually start talking about it, but once I did, it really made it much easier to be out there, because we no longer are case studies. We're part of the conversation and documentation process. So kudos to everyone who's working on this. And yeah, I think talking about this and documenting and keep holding those who are responsible, the perpetrators, to account in all the ways we can, even in cases like platforms where they don't take responsibility, I think is really, really important and worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you, Arzu, and thank you for the work that you've done on this over the years. I know that's how I think we first connected a long time ago on the internet, so it's nice to finally meet you. I think we've got another question right here, or comment. Let's try, maybe we have some questions so our panelists can respond. Go ahead.
Hi, very insightful. I mean, I'm following these topics, but from a larger perspective. But now probably I will ask something which will be maybe controversial. But as long as we talk about these individual cases, like, I don't know, president of the country, Maya Sandu, or each of you, if you are targeted, then kind of like it makes sense. It's a clear individual case, and we have clear indication of attacks and all of that, narratives including. But at the same time, we have situations where we speak about larger groups of people, and I can bring you the example of Moldova, the recent elections, or before the previous year and the presidential elections, when like those voters that are related to one of the proxies of Russia, sure, like those women, old aged women that voted or supported this person were labeled in such a way like grandma offshore, which is the proxy of Russia, if you don't know about that. And it was a little bit dehumanizing. So I feel that sometimes we have to really make sure that we speak the same language and use the same concepts with regard to the phenomena that affects women in general, not choosing sides. If they are, I don't know, somehow related to Russia and are supporting the Russian narrative, then they can be dehumanized in a way. While if it's about Maya Sandu, then obviously we'll have to talk about that. I think it somehow echoes what Laure said about having this trial on Macron's wife, and why it was not brought to a larger, like discussed in a larger context. It's about a trans woman. It's about many other things. It's not just about her case.
So an actor-agnostic approach to gender disinformation, right?
Yeah, and advocating for the same principle applied to everyone.
Let's have one more question and then we'll respond. I think we had one back there.
Thank you for interesting discussion. My question is regarding these smear campaigns and what we hear about the women. I have seen like those kind of smear campaigns being talked about among people, but very rarely covered by the professional, ethical journalists. Why? Because sometimes they think that maybe we draw additional attention to that, or like this is so stupid we cannot just report about that. But like, what do you think is the right way, and like where is this line when you are not amplifying this hate, but you are also reporting in a way that informing about the threats and problem itself. So in our country this is a huge problem, and it goes not just about the women but also LGBTQI community and identity topics in general.
That's a great question, how to ethically report on gender and identity-based disinformation without maybe invoking the Streisand effect. So one question on actor-agnostic approach to GD and identity-based disinfo, and the second question. Who wants to go first? I've got plenty if no one wants to jump in.
No, maybe a reaction to this last question and related to the comments we had. I really indeed believe that having women who speak up is really the key, and it doesn't happen that often, because featuring yourself as a victim is never something you want to do when you're a public figure, or you're whoever you are, especially if you're at this stage of your career where you have this level of visibility that people start doing smear campaigns against you. You don't want to turn into a victim and then focus all the attention around this not palatable narrative. I've had discussions with journalists who are saying, well, if you want me to write about this, then you need to get into the details. And then you realize, I don't want to get into the details, because this is not what I want to see associated with me in the future. So I don't know how we get out of this, but I do believe that we rely a lot on the bravery of women who do speak up, who are strong enough to go beyond this and say, this will not define me for the next years to come. I'm way more than this, but I need to have all the mechanisms exposed.
Just a quick remark. I will be very brief regarding the first question. Yes, I absolutely agree that there shouldn't be any separation, and at the end of the day, it's a human rights issue, right? And if we're saying that, of course, we have to cover all sorts of violation. Like if I start about talking about Georgia, I can give you several examples of how several disinformation claims actually try or demand legislative changes to when it comes to women and also human rights. And regarding the second question, what Myth Detector does, and that is our experience, how we produce articles on gender or identity-based disinformation. We look at the extent to which the claim is spreading, and that's another sign. Very early on, we do not necessarily produce the article not to amplify it even farther. But that's the thing when it comes to identity-based disinformation, that at some point it's going to get bigger. It always does, because it's intended to do that.
Yeah, and on your question about kind of the actor-agnostic approach, so the research that I've done has always been, particularly when focusing on the United States, it's been cross-partisan. So we did a large study in 2020 at the Wilson Center that showed no difference in political party targeting with gendered disinformation. I just did a study last year that looked at deepfake pornography targeting members of Congress. We found 1 in 6 women in Congress are targeted by deepfake pornography. It doesn't matter their political party. I always speak out and make it a point to speak out when people use gendered language or gendered disinformation to describe politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert. I disagree with them vehemently and would not want to have a conversation with them personally, but I do not like when people use that language against them, and I think that's really important that until this language is gone for all women. It doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you're on. It is damaging to everyone if anybody is using it. And then just to add to Marie-Dora's point about why people don't speak out. So I've made it a point to speak out about my experiences. I told you all about them yesterday. It has gotten to the point that I'm pretty rehearsed in how I talk about what happened to me. And I sometimes do regret that I have made a point to call out the people who have overturned my life with their lies, many of which were gendered, because I am interviewed more about the worst weeks, years, months of my life than I am about my actual area of expertise, the places and things that I research. And one woman on the opposite side of the spectrum even said that I made being a victim my brand. So there is a risk to it. But I do think that as journalists, when you're approaching folks who have been targeted about stories, do it in an informed way. Do it with their consent, do it with them, establish what they're comfortable with, and really work with them on the story in a trauma-informed way, and that will produce content that is informative to your readers, but also respectful of the targets of the harassment themselves. Any other final points from, go ahead, Alina.
I would like to bring to our discussion some thoughts about more proactive approach. So in Ukraine, you know, we probably, maybe it would sound ironically, we one of the most comfortable country for women as of now in terms of misogyny. We do not have it. Our women, nobody tells our women to go back to kitchen. It's an opposite situation. Men are in armed forces and some women are in armed forces, and women are allowed to go to traditional male works. But what we are thinking and doing now in Ukraine, we are building approaches to strategic communications and proactive narratives. And for example, we have newly appointed Minister of Culture, and she was also promoted at the same time to be Vice Prime Minister, so it's the highest representative in the government. And they started the process of formulating and creating and formalizing identity, not like personal identity, but identity as a whole nation. What means to be Ukrainian as of now, and what means for future to be Ukrainian. And this process, if we want to be like proactive and address some possible Russian disinfo attacks, this process is already, and it has to be in future inclusive, just to include women's voices, all minorities' voices, and we are working on that. Also, I would like to highlight that yesterday's information from Guardian, I guess, about further developments on European Shield, anti-disinformation. It was stated that countries beyond the EU would be invited at governmental level, but also at civil society level, to create some fact-checkers network. From Ukrainian point of view, seeing the role of civil society as only fact-checkers, it's a bit of simplification, because also we can be useful, not only, of course, we can be useful as fact-checkers, all of us from all countries, but also we can be useful in policy, in advising, in policy making, in advocacy. So I also hope that this whole European process will bring us further in fighting against Russia at hybrid level.
Thank you, Galina. Always a lot to learn from our colleagues in Ukraine. I think we are over time, so I'm going to stop. I tried my best to keep it short and snappy. Thank you to my wonderful panelists. Thank you to MDF and the donors for having us here, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
To return the mic. Okay, now it's time to move to the last panel discussion we have scheduled for today. When reporting the truth is risky, journalists, fact-checkers, and researchers under attack, moderated by Nini Gorobakidze. Please.
I think everyone is here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for staying till the end as we reach our last panel for this very important and insightful conference, Unveil the Truth. I would like once again to thank organizers and their team members for all the work they have done together, us here in Moldova together. I personally learned a lot, so thank you. I would like to have the more cheerful topic for the less discussion. However, I think that in the time of crisis that we are living, of the crisis of global democracy, I think it's very important to think how we keep moving and how we are remaining in the battle, in the fight for freedom and for truth, and how we are keeping ourselves and our colleagues and those freedom fighters and truth tellers in the business, in this very difficult business, I would say. So we will be talking, as was announced, about the safety and targeted attacks and all those risks that journalists, fact-checkers and researchers are facing, not just in our region, but worldwide. And I will not spend our precious time for general assessment or like remarks from my side, as we have really distinguished speakers who can share their first-hand experiences about these risks and safety challenges that journalists and freedom fighters and truth tellers in our region are facing. So as we are in Moldova, I would like to start our discussion with a question to Alina. Alina, you are the investigative reporter leading the organization which was just recently awarded with the European Prize for your investigation into the Russian pyramid, which was trying to steal hearts and minds of Moldovan voters just in pre-election period of these recent elections. The prize you won is really good. I congratulate you, but I bet this was not an easy route for your team and those who were working to investigate this very well organized and very well planned attack on truth in your country. Could you please share how you see this process right now, when I think that mostly this operation was not successful if we judge by the results of the Moldovan elections?
Thank you very much, and I am very glad that from time to time we discuss about problems of investigative reporters, because otherwise the society have a lot of expectations from reporters, that if you are a good reporter, there will be more expectation, more pressure, and we receive after the prize and after the good job our reporters have done, there are more and more requests. You have to do that, you have to do that, you have to do that. And actually we miss a kind of discussion, what are the difficulties of a team, and are there enough solutions for these difficulties? So one of the best things in investigative reporting is to work undercover, to go in a place where illegal things happen, and to stay with those people and to observe and to collect data from the very field, and then to present this. And my colleagues managed for many times to work undercover. Actually, it was not the first story, but we think it was one of the most impactful, because following elections in Moldova, we knew from previous years that some politicians will go to villages and bribe people, giving them some rice, some food, or I don't know what. Recently, the things changed dramatically, and all the bribes are coming from Moscow in a form of money, but you don't see this in the street. You have to be in that pyramid to observe how the money go, how the money flow circulates, how the political orders come from Moscow, and people are said what to vote for, and then they receive this money. So our reporters stayed undercover, did all the job, received money from Russian Federation, published everything, and of course it was a shock for the society. Everybody distributed this, everybody was discussing this, but there was something that, how to say, destroyed me as a manager. Every single person who was watching this story on YouTube or on Facebook was asking, was writing a question. Is this reporter safe? Is this girl safe? Is this journalist safe? And me as a manager of this media and the manager of these reporters, you know, it was like a stone every single time. And this question was every single time to me. Nobody said, where is Alina? Can she say if the reporter is safe? But me as a manager, I can never say if our team is safe. Even we took, you know, a lot of measures. We got a lot of training. We try to be as safe as possible, but you never know. And then when you receive messages like, with your story, you made Putin angry, and you have to respond for this. And you know that Putin never cared about the life of a journalist. If you look at Anna Politkovskaya or many others who were just killed, and you try again to think, how do you make your team safe? And really, if you ask me, can I stop my team? Because I'm not sure I can do everything that they are saying. I even can't stop. I even don't know if I'm not sure that they are safe. Altogether, we managed to do a good job, but we really miss a discussion in the society. If we speak about investigative reporters, these are guys working very silently somewhere. They are observing all the time. They even don't go to sleep before they check something again. They do it daily and nightly, silently and silently. Investigative reporting don't make a big noise about what they do, but they go to the most complicated places in the country or in the place they live and try to understand what happens and try to observe and to have proofs. And while these brilliant journalists are working silently to serve the public interest, there are now on the digital space armies of trolls attacking them every single day. And how do you protect them from this? Because when there were a few cases when we called police because there were, you know, messages like, I'll cut your head, I'll cut your hands, you'll be killed. You have to do something. But those messages the police say, well, but we live in Moldova, but the messages are sent on a platform controlled by America or by China. And actually the messages are written by someone who is Russian, so we can't do. And then, you know, it gives a message that you can't be sure that journalists are safe.
Thank you so much. Yes, my next question was what was the police reaction? Actually, to understand the limits in our, from our side, what kind of limits we have when defending our journalists and colleagues. That is very important because in your case, police at least showed up. They tried something. We have cases in our region and beyond that police is the main threat to journalists sometimes, so we will be talking about that. I think now when we move to Georgia, and I would like to introduce Mamuka Andruladze, long-time human rights advocate and media freedom advocate and academic from Georgia, and currently working for Media Advocacy Coalition in Georgia. Mamuka, I have heard your presentations and speeches for many years in different settings and conferences and your interviews. We never had a country where journalists felt safe, free, and happy. However, something has drastically changed in recent years. And unlike Moldova, when journalists still feel that they might rely on local law enforcement and their state to support them against some threats, Georgia is not in that situation right now. Can you please explain how the situation actually changed, and was it was the crucial moment really the Russia's unprovoked invasion in Ukraine in 2022, or did it start earlier or later? So this is my question, first question to you.
Thank you very much. It is definitely a very painful question because it reflects reality. But of course, this kind of questions and issues should be discussed. And just in 2 words, I would like to thank you, MDEV colleagues, for organizing this event, and hosts and donors, because this kind of events gives us a possibility to speak, to discuss what we face in Georgia, plus the challenges my colleagues and friends in other countries are facing. And through this communication, advocacy, and through solidarity, which is crucial, we can reach at least increase the public awareness and coordinate our strengths, because without solidarity, it is impossible to survive. And since we speak about survival, in case of Georgia, and unlike to Moldova, at least there are expectations from your side that the source of the violence will not come from the law enforcement bodies. This is quite crucial. If we look at the data of the monitoring of the incidents involving representatives of independent media outlets, just during the last year, since last year, more than 400 verified incidents have been identified. In all cases, around 99%, the incidents included the journalists representing independent radio, television, and online media outlets. Some of them are here present and even working here. Just to understand zero tolerance, what means in case of a country like Georgia, when more than 300 days people are protesting, expressing solidarity, demanding justice, demanding European integration process to be continued, and literally every day you know that something might happen. And there are situations that when you are flying or 1 or 2 hours, your mobile phones have been switched off and you switch on and, oh, my friend has been detained. Oh, this journalist has been detained or beaten, etc. The signs were already there, because this kind of massive scale of repression is it impossible to conduct without capturing the state institutions. My colleague and friend Etta Buziashvili was talking here about disinformation and other issues, and she also, Delishi, but others also, Georgian colleague mentioned, so always some kind of science. So for me, like since 2015, when court trial began against, at that time, like as a quite strong opposition television station, and plus secretly recorded materials have been released. This is more or less like a huge beginning of the change of situation. And there was like situations is Georgian March, like part of this Russian movement, and then there was a Gorilov night when in one night around 40 independent journalists plus government-controlled media outlets, journalists have been injured, and none of the person have been brought into account. 2021, within 2 days, around 60 journalists got injured. So what it shows me is this rapid deterioration of democratization process in Georgia. We always used to be transitional democracy, but at least it was more or less safe to work. Now it applies to both, to civil society and media outlets. We are all literally in the same boat. The government was using so-called front-man organizations who are attacking the violence, and they used to be as a player, and then replace these persons, and now Georgian Dream as a de facto ruler is key source of the violence. But through small tests, through capturing of the institutions, then in 2022 it was like launch massive scale of attack on Georgian democratization process, and plus the stakeholders, an island of democracy, independent civil society and media organizations became the natural targets. I don't know, it is related with my micro, or like it's like Kremlin launching like secret operation. Since 2024, more than 20 new laws or amendments to the existing laws have been adopted. In all cases, it is restrictive, very repressive legislation targeting civil society, media organizations, and activism. The laws like FARA, Georgian Russian version of FARA, quite excessive. The Russian legislation which demands from EU to be labeled as agent, and like in case of Russia, agent, the term in Georgia has also definitely very negative meaning. Content regulation, dramatic changes of regulation, media outlets, total forbidding for independent stations and radio to receive any funding from abroad, and plus the investigations. I mean, here are the MDF, for example, or others under investigations. They are like under FARA legislation, you have to be registered as agent, or what kind of funding you have received to reveal, including personal information. If you release this information, you are even violating our repressive legislation. Plus, under sabotage and etc., there are criminal investigations, and Communications Commission, which is launched the implementation of repressive legislation. We have Mzia Marlobeli in prison, and during the last 2 weeks, around dozens of journalists have been detained. As there are, even the member of the board of the public broadcaster has been violently detained, and there are footages, and the reaction from the leadership of the public broadcaster showed what is the situation in terms of state capture. Either spreading the government narratives or being silenced, and zero tolerance. This is just briefly to sum up. The signs were always there, and this kind of repression is impossible to implement without huge preparation, and key are capturing the state institutions, one of them, and plus what we have right now, totally ignoring the demand of domestic and international community to return to the democracy process, and we are in the middle of fighting, literally say, but we are using democratic ways to oppose, restrict to this anti-Georgia, anti-European, anti-democratic pressure.
Thank you so much. Later I will be asking about the like individuals who are presented as symbols when repressing the press and media freedom to everyone. But and now I want to ask question to Sophia. Sophia is from Hungary. Sophia, you're working for the fact-checker organization, which actually is working in a country where which is maybe in very few countries among European Union member states and NATO member states, which has fallen for this Russian hybrid disinformation war campaign quite early, and this trend started in your country for already from some years ago. How it is for fact checkers? Do you feel that hostile environment on yourself, or it's just restrictive environment around you, or what is bothering you?
Thank you so much for the question and also for inviting me here. It's a great honor to be among these colleagues. I think the main thing what you described is, or the main word what I would like highlight, it's the hostile environment. When I started my career as a journalist more than 10 years ago, it was already the Orban regime, so I don't know any other reality as a journalist to work in, but I can tell that it's obviously getting worse and worse and more hostile. I think a lot of people mind and vocabulary doesn't really include the word independent journalism and independent journalist. But it can bother you, but you can live with that. But the thing is that when the Prime Minister in his speech compare you as a journalist to a bug that should be smashed and eliminated, it's a recent case, then you feel this hostility. And of course, you can tell that your work is getting harder and harder. A lot of people are afraid to talk to you. You're not getting the information. But when you feel this hostility, and also it goes into every level of the society, so it's coming from the top, from the politicians, but also from social media comments or emails into your inbox, then you definitely feel this hostility more and more, and it's not the best environment to work in. And I always say that in Hungary, I still cannot imagine that journalists would go to jail or get killed for what they are writing. But still, if you have to work in a hostile environment like that, then it's definitely not pleasant.
Yes, it's so feels so close to us as well, because we hear the public officials from different scenes talking about journalists, fact checkers, and researchers and academics and civil society members in general, in a way just you described. So this is scary, not just because of the bad words you hear, but if the center of power sees journalists like that, then of course there is no political will to defend those actors from the attacks of any kind. So this is attack itself, and from those who are supposed to counselors in the country. So this is something that we are witnessing every day in Georgia as well. And I'm interested to hear from Ani what is happening in Armenia, because there were so many different challenges Armenia as a country has recently faced, and these processes, of course, have impact on the environment journalists are working in. And I'm interested to hear from you, you as a fact checker, what trends do you see?
This year is more remarkable as we are not gathered in Tbilisi, but let's hope that Georgia will soon overcome all the challenges it is facing so that we see free and independent media thriving again. When it comes to Armenia, I often said that from the outside things may seem better, especially compared to what our colleagues in Georgia and Azerbaijan are facing. But I can assure you that we too have our own serious challenges and we confront them every single day. One of the most alarming trends in recent years has been the rise of SLAPP lawsuits, legal actions designed to silence journalists and drain their limited resources. In Armenia, SLAPPs have become a common tactic used by politicians and officials to discourage investigative reporting. Instead of replying to our official journalistic inquiries, they prefer to take independent media to court, seeking substantial financial penalties and retraction. Let me bring one example from my own newsroom. In late 2024, Mayor of Yerevan, Tigran Avinyan, sued CivilNet over an investigation we published in cooperation with OCCRP. Instead of, he ignored our inquiries for a month, but after the story was published, he filed a lawsuit demanding both financial compensation and the retraction. Just a few days ago, court issued its decision, and unfortunately, it partially satisfied ruled in favor of the mayor, ordering CivilNet to publish a retraction, even though none of the facts in our investigation were ever disproven. The court rejected his demand for financial compensation, but still claimed that we defamed him for publishing verified information. This is deeply worrying because it creates a dangerous precedent. We are going to appeal this decision, but if such ruling stands, it means that any politician can pressure independent media to retract well-documented investigations simply because the truth is inconvenient. At CivilNet, legal fees are now part of our budget, money that could have been allocated to training young journalists or do new investigations. In this case, we get some support from Reporters Without Borders, but legal assistance, legal defense remains extremely expensive. And when we talk about independent journalists, we often focus on political pressure, but the truth is that economic pressure could be just as destructive. Many Armenian media outlets operate in a small, highly competitive market with limited advertising opportunities and shrinking donor support. For most independent outlets, survival itself is a daily challenge. At the same time, public in Armenia is still not ready to financially support free media. People expect to receive access quality journalists, but rarely willing to pay for it. That's why international assistance remains essential, not as charity, but as a means of safeguarding media independence until local support structures mature. Meanwhile, deep political polarization has a direct impact on the media. Almost every media outlet is quickly labeled as pro-government or pro-opposition, regardless of its actual reporting. Because of this polarization, independent journalists are often deliberately targeted by politicians, partisan actors, or even segments of the public. Whenever our investigations do not fit someone's political narrative, we immediately become a target of smear campaigns and online abuse. This environment erodes public trust and places enormous pressure on few truly independent outlets that try to remain objective. And when we talk about pressures on journalists, we can't ignore one of the most serious threats today: foreign information manipulation and interference, FIMI. As Armenia moves closer to its 2026 parliamentary elections, we are witnessing a growing wave of disinformation and influence campaigns, primarily driven by Russian state-affiliated actors. These operations have intensified over the past year and largely focused on discrediting Armenian government and its cooperation with the European Union. Almost every week we see so-called investigations and exposures appear online, mostly produced by anonymous platforms or pro-Russian media, and spreading false and distorted facts about claims about Armenian politicians and Western institutions. We know that same patterns have been observed in Moldova ahead of elections, but what is particularly alarming is that, according to Russian information experts themselves, these operations in Armenia started much earlier than in other countries. And unfortunately, media literacy in Armenia remains low, and state institutions are poorly equipped to detect or counter these disinformation campaigns. That's why journalists and fact-checkers often find themselves on the front line of this information warfare, not just protecting facts, but the people's ability to make objective decisions.
Thank you. Thank you, Annie. It's really interesting how things are changing in such a small region, South Caucasus, rapidly, and every day having the new picture there. Now I want to ask Jean, who is working for Reporters Without Borders and who is also a supporter of this great event with her organization. Thank you, Jean, for that support. You are researching the attacks on journalists, fact-checkers, researchers. You are trying to support them in this fight and keep them in their profession for many years. You have also journalistic background. First question for you is how you feel. What is the main problem which you see as an ex-journalist now supporting journalists in our region, and where it is going? What is your also personal, not just professional, but personal feeling about that?
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me, hosting me here. First, as a former journalist working now in the defense of journalism, what I've seen since many years, since a few years, is of course the power of disinformation, of propaganda. So this is the main problem because of course it creates a climate of instability and insecurity for journalists that I haven't seen before.
Thank you. We mentioned, and our guest speakers on this panel mentioned so many different problems, starting from government-related attacks, physical threats, imprisonment, slaps, I don't know, smear campaigns, and Russian interrogation directly. So what are the trends now in our region? And maybe this is something that we see globally and this is a new normal, or how we are really talking about these things nowadays. Do we consider this to be something that is spreading more fast than we expected, or do you think that there is some kind of fight which really can have any results against these trends?
Yeah, unfortunately, there are many risks for journalists for many years now, and I wanted to highlight, I don't know if we have the presentation, the World Press Freedom Index safety map, to have a broader view on the attacks on journalists, because you know Reporters Without Borders releases every year in May this World Press Freedom Index, and there are 5 indicators in it, and safety is one of the indicator. So you can see the most dangerous countries in the world in this map. So I think it's quite clear. Our region is well represented, of course. And each year also we are releasing the roundup of killed, imprisoned, disappeared, or state journalists. Only those for whom RSF has been able to establish that they have been imprisoned or killed because of their journalistic activity. I just want to highlight this because sometimes it's not clear about our mandate. And the next roundup will be released in mid-December, but I still have temporary figures I can show you. So over 60 journalists have been killed this year already. And the most dangerous countries are, of course, Palestine, but also Mexico and Sudan. More than a quarter were killed in connection with reporting on organized crime or corruption. So it's interesting for our audience here. In Mexico, for instance, the 9 journalists that have been killed, they were mostly investigating corruption, organized crime, or links to its links to politicians, and they had received explicit death threats before. In Eastern Europe and Central Asia, we have. We count, unfortunately, 4 killed journalists this year, and 3 of them last month in Ukraine while they were covering the war, and they were targeted by Russian drones, which is quite new, a new train on the front line, and even not so close to the front line. So it's a big issue for journalists covering the war because they are intimidated, and many of them don't want anymore to go there because it becomes too dangerous with these drones. When we speak about imprisoned journalists, we currently have over 520 journalists imprisoned worldwide, and 130 in the Eastern Europe and Central Asia area, and in Russia, 49. So Russia is currently the third jailer of media professional in the world, after China and Myanmar. Of course, Azerbaijan, Belarus, they are not far from Russia, and Russia is also the first to detain foreign journalists, because we have currently 26 Ukrainian journalists in jail in Russia. Of course, yeah. I wanted to highlight our new Predators Gallery for 2025. So those who particularly attacked the right to information in this year. And as you can see, they are different, they have different methods, but they share the same objective, silencing independent media voices. And for instance, we have here Bizina Ivanishvili, who uses his business empire and political connections to influence the media landscape, to stigmatize independent journalists, and to create a climate of impunity, and through all these actions heavily contribute to backsliding democracy. In many countries of the Eastern Europe area, you have also transnational repression, because journalists are forced into exile, from Azerbaijan since many years, and we've seen assassination attempts of journalists in Europe, in France even, and in Russia. Journalists from Russia, Belarus, in exile, they are not safe in European countries, unfortunately. And I just wanted to show these figures, because Russia uses legal tactics to intimidate these journalists into exile, to block their return to Russia, and to make pressure on their relatives. And you can see on this graph that between March 2022 and September 2025, nearly 70 journalists have been targeted through arrests and convictions in absentia, and among them, 30 of them were arrested or sentenced in absentia during the first 3 quarters of 2025. So that is huge trend we observe also. But it's good also to have some solutions, some support for journalists.
Yes, thank you for going there. That was actually what I wanted to ask to you first, and then ask our speakers also to share their thoughts. What arms do we have to protect journalists, truth tellers, fact checkers, and researchers? And what are those tools you think are working really well and at least have some degree of protection for people we want to protect?
The journalists are the first to be responsible for their own safety, of course. The journalists and the media directors. So that's why we have a platform called resources.rsf.org. No, it's not this one. No, there is no. Okay, no problem. So it's a platform to provide journalists with practical resources that strengthen their physical, digital, and psychological safety, improve source protection, and deepen knowledge of professional and legal standards in journalism. It offers content in English, in Chinese, Ukrainian, Arabic, and Spanish, maybe other languages soon. And you can find videos, you can find quiz, printable materials. Everything is tailored for a journalist's needs. And also we have, for instance, a digital safety guide for exiled journalists in Russian. And it's, no, it's not this. It's not this one. Sorry, it's not here. But it's available on the website resources.rsf.org. And this is the digital safety lab. It's located in Berlin, and journalists will have, let's say, suspicion of surveillance, or who are working on sensitive topics and so on, they can make their devices checked by our team of the Digital Safety Lab, and it can be done remotely. So the email is on the leaflet here. We also have offer assistance programs with emergency. Okay. Sorry, I'm not used to it. With emergency funding for journalists, for instance, if they need to pay legal fees, if they have slaps, like Annie in Germany. It also offers psychological support. It's very important for newsrooms, and other kind of support also for relocation, and emergency support for media in ease. And last but not least, I wanted to speak about litigation, because it's, of course, it's a long-term strategy, but much needed to fight against impunity and make targeting journalists more costly. So that's why RSF files complaints in to local courts, but also to the ICC, International Criminal Court, for instance, for Russia, Belarus, Israel. It's also important for each journalist, when possible, to report to the police, to file complaint in democratic countries, because even for cyber attacks, online threats and so on, because it's a massive phenomenon, but often underreported. And for governments, if this is not in the statistics, it doesn't exist. So they won't put any effort in solving the problem if journalists are not reporting it officially.
Thank you so much for sharing these resources. Many organizations now try to have as much support for their teams locally, like media organizations, as possible. But I still have that feeling, and this will be my last question to you, if you can just very shortly answer those to have time also for audience questions. I still think that nowadays, staying in journalism, fact-checking, and unveiling truth business, it takes something more than just supportive mechanisms. Like those people who are deciding to stay in this profession, deciding to fight for truth, they have something that is more than protective media organizations or these international support mechanisms. Of course, they all need this, but what is that thing that is keeping all of us in this very dangerous business?
I think exactly that community. also nationally but also internationally. I have a recent example because in May this year our government drafted a bill called Transparency in Public Life, which was basically a draft for a foreign agent law. Thankfully, it's still a draft. It's still like a constant threat hanging above our head, but it's just a draft. But what we witnessed was a huge amount of support from colleagues from all over the world, and we also I have this example that a high-ranking politician from Fidesz, the ruling party, attacked us online. He made a post about our organization. He posted our names, our like details of CVs, working history, which, by the way, publicly available, and we are proud of that. We are like not hiding anything. But he made a post about us as if we are hiding something, as if we are the enemy, and depicted us really like foreign agents. And there were articles about us in the pro-government media. And what we did was two things. We reached out to a lot of international colleagues, and also they reached us. And we made interviews. We talked to these colleagues, and we felt international solidarity. And it was really, really amazing. And it was. I always wrote in those emails that that's why we are doing this. That we have this support, and it's really that's what helps us keep going. But also, we replied this particular attack with a positive message, and we said that, okay, if you want to talk about us, that's great. Let's talk about our work, because you posted our names and working history. We are proud of that, but we are proud of our articles, and we made a post replying to this politician that that's our work, and we posted our articles we are most proud of. We posted a picture together, and I think that showed that we are standing together, we are a community, we are a group, but also we have the international solidarity. And I think those guys we saw on the picture want to like incite hatred, but also divide us as journalists and the society. And the one thing we can do that we just don't give it to them, and we stay united.
Thank you so much. Do you want to add something?
I agree with Sofia. Community support is crucial, but it's also very important to work with our societies, explain them what's going on, explain all the processes. For example, in Armenia, people don't, sometimes we see that they don't understand what's going on in Georgia. They said, like, it's okay, they are more transparent now. Like, no, it's not about transparency, it's not about, so in this case, we need to be more proactive, talk with them, explain them, and it can help us. Yeah, we need a community, but we need also support of our society.
Thank you.
I fully agree with your assessment and analysis. I think values and understanding that you're literally doing a good job, and the society benefits from that in your country. And right now, in Georgia, when we are in the middle of this resistance and opposing to this repression, we are quite actively stating that be on the right side of history. And every time, whenever this kind of crisis, other crisis that happens or happened in history, you know exactly after, during when you are in the middle of that, but after that, the people, society, history will put the names who were where, and especially during this time, it's the 21st century and digital governance, and all names, all faces, all actions, all deeds will be archived. So that's why we, not me personally, but my colleagues, my friends, journalists, fact checkers, all of us, they are on the right side of history, and this is crucial.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, I feel very sorry about our colleagues in Georgia and Armenia. Please keep strong, and Hungary and everybody. I want to say that there were moments, it's about the talk we started, when police didn't respond. We even had the worst case. We sent a request to police because we received death threats. Someone said, "I'll kill you." And we received after a month the answer from Ministry of Interior, and the answer was, unfortunately, none of you were killed, so we couldn't open any case. But, you know, we fight it further, and we are here now, and we wanted, one of the solutions is to communicate each with other and to see what is the solution there, what is the best case there, what we can learn one from each other. Anyway, we, as investigative reporters, we have a bunch of, let's say, vulnerabilities. This is digital threats, legal threats, physical threats, psychological threats, and financial problems. As an investigative team, you never have any financial security because you are always thinking how to serve the community, not how to make a business and to sell an investigative story. But having 21 years of our investigative reporting team and growing till the moment we received the Best Investigative Reporting Prize in Europe, or this month actually we were the web page #1 in the country, among the, you know, the most read web page in the country. And this is an investigative reporting team, not about flowers or, you know, divorces and things like that.
This is amazing result.
So it means it may happen. We just, the rule #1 is we never give up, and the rule #2 is we learn, discuss, and exchange with others.
Thank you so much. I think it's a great point to add our discussion. If there are the questions in the audience, like we might have a few minutes. I know we are late, but it's not just our fault. So please raise your hands. One question, two questions. I see. We can collect them and answer them after.
Good evening. My name is German Piatov. I'm from Russia. I am president of Mlada Foundation. This foundation helped orphan children, but after war began, I changed politician, and I'm anti-Putin fighters. And my question to all speakers, if they post something in Russia, video reels, saying something, post in the networks, in the newspaper, you can estimate how many life sentences Putin will give you. And it's not about me and not about only journalists, but it's about ever anti-war activist. Yes, because we have received from Putin 6-year prison for one comment. And my question is, how do you think, what can collective West to do to help this person, with journalists, Because the dangerous is not only when journalists inside Russia, but outside Russia is the same. There are many examples of this. Thank you.
Thank you. There was another question.
Just briefly, I think you mentioned financial repression, and I think I'm curious to what extent this is the case, but obviously if you are outlawed as a media, that makes it difficult to obtain advertising revenue. The whole foreign agent laws as well being a huge issue to get foreign grants. Curious what mechanism you're finding to fundraise and whether social media monetization tooling, for example, is something that has come into the picture. If you could share a little bit about the experience you've had with that. Yeah, just generally, how do you push back against the financial repression?
Thank you. One more question, and we can then go to answers.
Hello, I'm a journalist here in the Republic of Moldova. During the threats that were made against the journalists in your press organizations, were there involved people from church institutions or religious institutions close to the government? Thank you.
Thank you. I think the first question, if you can answer that, in like what the international society is doing to support those Russian journalists and anti-war activists outside of Russia, and then there's two questions to it.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Of course, we help a lot the journalists in exile, and in March 2022, we fund called the Journalism in Exile Fund to help Russian, Belarusian, and Ukrainian journalists to, not journalists themselves, but newsrooms to relocate if they wanted to do, and to help them with administrative support and visa support and so on, and also funding to help them to resume to work quickly as possible, because we think supporting media in exile is the best way to fight against propaganda from their own country. For instance, also we launched a satellite bouquet to circumvent censorship, and this satellite broadcasts news in Russian from reliable channels to target audiences in Russia and in Ukrainian occupied territories and so on. We help the media outlets to circumvent, in exile, to circumvent censorship with mirror sites, for instance. And we, as I've mentioned, offer relocation fees to journalists and administrative support for their visa. And also important, we advocate at the level of the European Union and European countries to help these journalists in exile, because, as I've mentioned, they face transnational repression, and they face also many problems in their daily life with administration, with money, and so on. So, and I just wanted to mention about protection of journalists, that because Alina told about the best practice we could share around the world. I wanted to mention the fact that in the UK, for instance, since I don't know if it's since a few months or last year, they put in place, and RSF pushed for this, a system where of protection of journalists, where, for instance, officers in the police are specialized in responding journalists who are facing threats. So I think it's very efficient, and it could be applied in many democratic countries.
Thank you. The next question was about the monetization of social media websites or like social media accounts, if it generates some economic income, and what's your experience regarding that?
We still are likely not having this law about foreign agents or something, but we experienced a very bad thing at the beginning of this year when US government decided to cut down all the grants from US, and we just discovered we lost 40% of our salaries, and you have to find this to replace this immediately. It is the beginning of the year. All other institutions already had made a financial plan, and you are not into those plans. So it was really difficult, a crazy situation. What helped us was a good reputation. A good reputation opens doors. You don't have money, but if you have a good reputation, you monetize it somehow. As about the social media, yes, we use any possibility to get some money. We can't make any money from Facebook, let's say, or from TikTok, but there is a good thing about YouTube. When we place our video on YouTube, those who watch from Moldova, if people from Moldova only are watching, we don't receive anything. But the good thing is about diaspora. If they watch from any European country, then YouTube gives us money for that. And it's a little, but it's another form of receiving money. But the most trusted form is to communicate with the community, to say them every single time, here is our Patreon account, here is our donation account, please. And whenever we do a good investigative story, we see immediately how money are coming from people.
Thank you so much. Yes, Mamuka.
In Georgia, even when it was like more or less like the situation, the advertising market has been never sufficient to maintain all media outlets. Due to different reasons, but in most cases there were objective reasons, because legal changes into the law not in the right time or deliberately were destroying the market, and plus political money was always coming, and this artificial money were always destroying the healthy advertising market. And that's why the independent online media outlets, including investigators, they were always dependent on donor funding. And in terms of independent stations, the main argument was like, yeah, it's not sufficient for television to maintain because it's costly. Those who are not pro-government, they're elected with opposition, and that's why it invited more political money. These days, broadcasters are not allowed to receive any cent from abroad, with the exception of advertising in a broad sense, like in sense of audiovisual, medical directory, which include product placement, etc. Online media outlets can also provide some kind of services, and for these reasons, Tbilisi-based and regional-based online media outlets, including investigators, launched a joint campaign of crowdfunding, common campaign. It doesn't mean that they didn't have attempts to do it earlier, separate, but now they launched this joint campaign. They managed to gain some kind of support during the last 2 months. It's not huge, but for the beginning it's fine. And they gave all this money to the regional media outlets because the situation in the region is even more dire. So I hope that public attitude will be changed and etc. But yeah, this is the situation regarding the financial
Thank you, Mamuka, for adding this. Last question was about the like attacks and charge. Yeah, if there was any threats coming from religious institutions in cases which you had.
This is the funniest question. I like it very much. Although I think Mikhail already knows what happened to us, but a lot of Moldovan churches are controlled by Russian church. That's why many priests in Moldova were involved into those cases of buying votes and corrupting voters. They were going to Moscow in these black, dresses, and for a while nobody was checking them, but they were bringing bags full of cash to corrupt after that those people who believe in God. And I remember it was like 5 a.m. in the morning, and our reporter was in the airport because we had a signal that a group of priests will go to Moscow again. And she approached the priest and asked, why do you go to Moscow? What are you going to bring? And his answer was, why you, a woman, are not in bed at this moment. Go to bed immediately and don't come here to us. Well, this is not a big problem, but after that, of course, they attack us. Again, with spreading disinformation about independent media, and by spreading this kind of, in the church, they divide people into people with God and people with devil, and they tell you always that you are devil, and those people who trust or believe these priests start to consider that you are devil, and then they look at you as a devil, and then, it's a problem being named the devil every time, but we survived.
But we know that we are on the side of truth, and I think that really helps us, as Mamuka said. So thank you to our brilliant speakers today for sharing everything you had on mind regarding the safety of journalists and fact checkers and researchers. And I think that we took already too much time, and it's time to wrap up this conference and for the closing remarks. So I think I will invite you organizers on the scene.
Perfect. So that were very full-packed 2 days of our conference, and very interesting days. Let me just thank you, everyone who contributed to this conference, speakers, our guests, Technic, MDF, Tamar, and my colleagues from DW Academy, of course, too. And let me just express my wish that we will see next year all active and all healthy.
Thank you very much, all of you, for your contribution. I also hope that we will continue this tradition of unveiling truth annually, but we don't know where. I hope that we will be able to conduct this event either in Georgia or in another Eastern Partnership country, hopefully in Ukraine in some days. But it's our task to be in the service of democracy, but because by informing public, we are trying to preserve democracy and liberal order in our part of the world. So we will share all interesting researches with you later, because bad actors are quite well coordinated. We need some connections in exchange, gathering of knowledge, and defining our strategy for resilience building of our society. I hope you benefited from our workshops, and we will have more opportunity in the future to continue this conversation online. So you can fill the questionnaire either now or you will receive online the feedback. We hope to use it for planning future activity. Now we can take the group picture. And I ask all of you, and thank you, of course, our staff who helped us to organize this event. So, no, Arguinda.